Okay, so I'll call the January 21st, 2021 Town of Northwood Planning Board meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. with the following statement: due to circumstances associated with the coronavirus pandemic and pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, which declared New Hampshire to be in a state of emergency due to novel coronavirus COVID-19, an emergency exists as defined by RSA 91-A:2, paragraph 3 for the January 21st, 2021 Town of Northwood Planning Board meeting. Board members who are unable to attend in person may participate via electronic communication and will be deemed to be present at the meeting for purposes of quorum and voting. At this time, we'll do a roll call presence. I guess we can call it that way. Anybody who wants to go can go in whatever order they want.
Hal Kreider.
Lee Baldwin.
Betty Smith.
Tim Vandenberg.
Victoria Parmalee.
Bob Stroll. And voting designation, all members present. Okay. I guess I need to pull up my notes from James. So tonight is a public hearing on the 2021 zoning amendments. James, what was the date you sent out the ones we're covering tonight? Do you remember?
I don't. The document itself is dated 1/7. I just wrote it the night of the meeting and I sent it to Belinda that same night.
That's fine.
I believe I probably forwarded it to the full board the next Monday.
It's on the 11th is what you have. I just had to find it. Okay. So yeah, nope, that is the no, it is the one.
I'm showing it on 121.
Yes, I'm showing it. Oh, sorry. I just didn't go far enough. You combined the two warrant articles. That's why I was a little confused. But yes, we have the steep slope as warrant article 3.
Correct.
So I just didn't go far enough down the document. Page not, if you're looking at it on email, it's the sent out on the 11th, and we're looking at page 9 of 10. Okay.
So if you like, I can,
Sure.
if Susan's enabled it, I can share my screen and run through that document for the benefit of the public, and then we can take comment.
Yep, sounds good.
Should be all set.
Yeah, it's working. All right, so warrant article 2, we discussed and presented last meeting, but there were a few minor edits that we wanted to make, mostly for clarity's sake. So I have made those subsequent changes and highlighted them in yellow. I think if the board opts to send this to these changes to the ballot, because remember you sent the version as it existed last time to the ballot, just in case we weren't able to have a quorum or something impacted our ability to meet tonight. This would supersede what you sent last time, and I would, in preparing a final version of this to be on file for voters as we get closer to town meeting, I would just get rid of the yellow formats and show all of the proposed changes the same. Those minor changes were located under the impacts allowed by special exception. Remember, a lot of our changes to this document were about removing references to uses and having them instead refer to impacts to the wetland. In this case, I just found two more that I thought it would be clearer if we made that change. So there's one of them, and here's a second in paragraph 6. And then under B, since there are two different special exceptions that can be authorized, one where impacts to the overlay are to enable a use elsewhere on the property that's deemed essential to the productive use of the land. The other type is where you're doing something that is a use that's generally permitted. So it might be, which of these you're following might be impacted by the use itself and what you're doing elsewhere on the property. But in both cases, the criteria are very similar. And so I've changed the paragraph 1 under the second special exception to be the same as under the first special exception, so they match. So that was everything that is different from last week under that. Warrant Article 3 is something that we brought up last time as an issue that recently came to our attention, and we wanted to try and address it this year while we still had time. It's a very minor change. Under the steep slope protection overlay, there is a single reference to a conditional use permit. That is the only time that term appears in our zoning ordinance. Conditional use permits and special exceptions are very similar mechanisms for granting relief to a zoning ordinance. And in Northwood's case, we use special exceptions for everything that either of those mechanisms would normally address. But we had one stray mention of the other one. So we want to clear that up for clarity's sake. In my opinion, this makes absolutely no difference to the way the ordinance would otherwise be interpreted. We're not changing the level of regulation or anything like that. We're merely clearing up a mistake that was made when we were putting this draft together last time. And when this overlay was adopted, I believe town meeting 2020, actually. So I also, under my staff comments, put a little bit about the potential implications of this language being incorrect. I tried to do what is everything that I could think of that could conceivably go wrong. I'm not an attorney. I'm not familiar with cases that have dealt with somebody mistakenly referred to the wrong thing. So I don't know if a potential appeal would just sort of be immediately thrown out and say, no, read it like it says special exception or what. But we'd prefer not to find out. So we'd like to make that change. Any questions about the two warrant articles?
It all looks good.
Thanks for your work on it.
James, I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
I never thought of conditional use as something that was an exception to the zoning ordinance. I kind of thought it's like, it's a use that it's allowed if certain criteria are met. But as compared to a special exception. Am I?
In my opinion, that's probably more a semantic difference than Yeah, I think in both cases, there is something that you're allowed to do only if you meet very specific criteria that are established in the zoning ordinance.
Mhm.
I think that there is a tendency for conditional use permits to be things that are more related to site plan approval type of things anyway.
Right.
The idea being, yeah, the planning board isn't hearing some appeal or some one-off. This is a way to streamline a special approval that could be done at the same time as a site plan application or something like that. So you do more often see it with approving a use, like a commercial or an industrial use where they would be going through site plan anyway. But I have also seen it used for design standard kind of things.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, at this time, I'll open public comment on the zoning amendments. Would you mind not sharing your, well, actually, I think I can get everybody up. Yeah, I can get everybody up. Okay, so if you are a member of the public and are involved in the meeting and would like to speak on these amendments or comment, please unmute yourself and get my attention somehow. Either turn your camera on and raise your hand or say something, call my attention. We have two members of the public, Betsy and Andy, both are muted and not having a camera on. But I just want to double check if they are interested. Okay, hearing none, I will close public comment on the proposed zoning amendments. And should we do a motion for both at once? Each warrant article separately? Does it matter?
Normally I would say that you can just make one motion to send all of the zoning amendments to the ballot. But
Okay.
since we already made a motion last week, I would suggest a separate motion for each warrant article with the one for warrant article 2. So the first amendment to supersede the changes that were voted on last time.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion. That looks like Hal's mouth is moving, but he's muted.
Yeah, so moved. Thank you, Bob.
A
Second.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Kreider, second by Ms. Betty Smith to supersede the changes proposed this evening on warrant article 2. Is that correct for the
Yes.
intent of the motion? And a
Yes.
second, okay. Discussion on the motion to supersede warrant article 2. Hearing none, Susan will do a roll call vote. And if
Can I ask what you mean by supersede?
the language,
The board voted to send the language to the ballot last time, 2 weeks ago, just in case we weren't able to meet tonight. So I wanted to be clear that the language that is being sent tonight is intended to supersede what was previously sent to the ballot as a contingency.
Is it not in addition to, or?
It has to supersede.
I mean, it's the same except for 3 changes. But the changes are changes to the language. It's not something that was tacked on at the end. So I was just suggesting that as a way to make it clear in the motion that this is the version that will go to the ballot. You have a
Okay.
problem with that?
Well, I would, to me, it would be more clear if you were voting, because there's going to be two warrant articles, one wetland, two steep slope.
And we're
I
voting.
would rather
on-
just clarify each one as what they are on the record, that the planning board is recommending the changes to.
Correct. So
This is only
what
warrant
I
article
was
two.
suggesting is that this motion be a motion to send the proposed changes that we just discussed in warrant article 2 that are to the wetlands conservation overlay, and that they supersede the version that was sent to the ballot 2 weeks ago. And then a second motion simply to send warrant article 3 regarding steep slopes to the ballot.
Thank you. That.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question,
Yes, go ahead, Tim.
Tim. I thought in our last meeting that we had agreed to nullify the other two after we had approved the two new ones. I thought we were going to vote to get rid of them.
What?
You mean the version that we voted to send to the ballot last time?
That's correct. I thought that we had agreed, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought we had agreed that once we approved the new ones, we would vote to eliminate the previous two, which I think would be more clear.
Well, there was
However,
only
Linda-
one the last time. There was only one. It was the wetlands.
All right, one. Okay, one.
Yep.
That's why I suggested the word supersedes. I think it would make it clear that this is a replacement of what was discussed and voted on
Last
2
week.
weeks ago, and it would mean that we wouldn't need to make a second motion.
That makes sense.
So
Thank you.
Tim, I think we're on the same page. It's just a matter of what motions we use to
Oh.
get there.
I think the end result is the same, that the language proposed tonight is being proposed to go on, or is being placed on the ballot based on depending on whether the motion passes or not.
Well, if you're gonna go with the supersede, then I would just ask that you use, or add to this, to the motion, the statement that it includes both the wetlands overlay district
No.
changes and the
The-
changes to the.
Linda, the
steep
motion was specific. to
That's why I
warrant article 2.
suggested 2 motions, Linda.
Right.
Yep.
We've only discussed warrant article 2, the wetlands.
Okay, it supersedes. Isn't it the same thing though?
What, I don't,
With minor change. Okay.
it's the
never mind.
same
I'm
language. We
done.
just have, Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm
Okay.
with you.
I think we're good.
I misunderstood the intent. I thought you were doing them both at the same
Nope.
time.
Nope. Just warrant, or just wetlands for this one.
Thank you.
Okay, are we all clear? And
I
if I
am.
did not, if I did not say so already, voting designation is all members present.
Yeah, and just on that last discussion, it's better to ask and make sure we got it right than miss it,
Exactly.
because this is
Yep.
our last chance.
Okay. Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Victoria,
Yes.
Al,
Yes,
Tim,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, so there's warrant article 2. We now I'd entertain a motion to send the language of warrant article 3 concerning steep slopes to the ballot.
So moved.
Second.
Hey, I'll
Okay,
let you have the other one.
yes. Motion by Ms. Betty Smith, second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion on the steep slopes zoning amendment changes. Hearing none. Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Victoria,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay. Thank you on those. And maybe we can stop sharing the screen. And we have, I believe we continued Carterton case. Let's see if I can find the case number to this evening.
19-6.
That sounds right. It's not on his letter.
Was that on the agenda?
Yes, 19-6. It was
Sort of.
sort of.
Okay.
How did we?
I
we heard that
am
last. Yeah.
I am 90% sure off the top of my head that we intended a quick turnaround and continued to tonight last week.
Yes, I remember that as well. But I'm noticing that it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, we were expecting somebody to tell us exactly what the status of the water flow calculations were, whether
Correct.
Carter had gone on the second iteration or whether we're still working on.
So I spoke to Mr. Carter on Tuesday and I can give an update.
Well, let's double check that we're legit in bringing this up. Is it a status update? And the only action we would need to take would be, would we need to take any action on?
In my opinion, it's a status update, and the only action I would recommend the board taking tonight is continuance.
Okay. I just wanted to double check.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I spoke with Mr. Carter over the phone on Tuesday, following up on our conversation from Thursday night and some emails that Linda and Susan had sent to make sure that he had materials. So in following up with him, I don't remember the exact date of the report from his engineer, but it was in February prior to us sending the questions or receiving the questions back from the town's engineer. So those have not yet been resolved. So when I spoke to Mr. Carter on Tuesday, he said he had an invoice from the firm and he was going to follow up with the engineer directly and let them either forward their contact information to me or let them know that they were authorized to work directly with me. I have not heard from either Mr. Carter or the engineer since that conversation on Tuesday. I believe I was able to figure out which firm it was that did the work based on our conversation, but I don't really feel comfortable reaching out on a cold call directly to the engineer, not knowing whether he and Mr. Carter have had the opportunity to talk and confirm that, yes, I do still need you to do some work for me. And, you know, we have a formal representative relationship there. So I was waiting to hear back from Mr. Carter and I have not heard anything since Tuesday. So I would suggest that we continue again. The board can think about how long you would want to give this one, whether you would want to put it on again for next week or for the workshop in February. I can
Next week is busy.
Yeah. I can also reach out to Mr. Carter again and follow up offline. I just didn't have the chance to do it today.
Hal, go ahead.
So James, I really appreciate you being careful about not committing to get some work done on somebody's behalf without making sure they had the approval. That's one sure way of getting people angry. So thank you. And then I guess the second part of that is I think Mr. Carter is trying to move forward on this as best he can. And I'm a little bit worried. I get the sense that he doesn't quite grasp the sequence of events as they need to happen and the consequences of not following that sequence. So I just encourage you to be real clear with him when you talk with him, because I think he's trying, but I'm not sure he really is connecting all the dots in terms of this needs to happen, then this, and then we can do something. He seemed very surprised the last meeting that we couldn't give a up or down vote.
Yeah, and I think the last meeting in some ways may have been a little bit of everybody getting on the same page as to where this was. This case had been on pause for so long, and when an applicant asks for their case to be on hold until they get materials, it goes on hold, on the town's end too. And I'm not doing follow-up or working on it because my expectation is that the applicant is going to come back and tell me when they're ready to pick the process up again.
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
And so, I do think it was a little bit unrealistic that we would have been able to act in one meeting the last time. But I think, in my opinion, the biggest item outstanding before you can render a decision is a resolution of those remaining stormwater questions. So I think, I think I made that clear to Mr. Carter that this is the issue that we need to address, and everything else is something I feel comfortable with the board discussing amongst yourselves and rendering a decision on. But this is where I think we need the more information to address those concerns by the town engineer.
Yeah, well, especially given, at least a portion of the public comment related to concerns about water flow and stuff and contamination and things. We need to do our diligence here.
Agreed. Okay. So thank you for that update. Thinking of dates to continue to, I believe we have a busy agenda next week.
What's the meeting after that?
That would
That would be
be
February 11th.
Yep.
Would be the second Thursday.
I don't get the sense that this is going to turn around real quick on the calculations if you haven't got confirmation that the engineer is even ready to do the calculations yet.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know. Some of these answers may be things that he had in his documentation but didn't put on the plan or in the report. And it may be as simple as, okay, I need to just pull the model up again and get a number or two. Some of them may require some reworking. I don't know enough about the back end to say how much work is going to be involved on their part. So I legitimately couldn't tell you, if I spoke to the engineer on Monday, whether they would be able to turn something around by Thursday or not.
Yeah.
Well, and then
And even then you would be looking at getting information the day of the meeting or at the meeting for the first time.
Yeah. Go ahead, Hal.
And will we not want at least some kind of sanity check by our engineers on that anyway, just to make sure we got all the answers that they were expecting?
I think that is a question for you all to consider. How clear you think the answer to each question would be. I think, if I recall correctly, at least one of the outstanding items was a comment to the effect that half of what would normally go into an equation for the volume of how much runoff is coming off of the site was missing. And so the town engineer wasn't able to check that volume and therefore that compliance with town regulations. And so for something like that, if it would involve being able to combine all of the information and ground truth. Yes, we know how much of this volume is happening, and then turn that into flow rates and compliance. That's something that I wouldn't feel comfortable advising the board on.
Yeah. So I think as long as we keep Mr. Carter informed as to the whys and also, what the potential schedule is here, I don't think he can have much of an argument that we're not moving him along as best we can.
Yep. I can almost guarantee the way my luck has been running that as soon as we pick a date of proposed February 11th, we will hear from Mr. Carter tomorrow with all the information saying, gee, why can't we get this ready for next Thursday? Anyway, that being said, I'm willing to take that risk and I'll take that blame. I would entertain a motion to continue case 19-6 to February 11th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Betty Smith, seconded by Mr. Kreider. Discussion? Hearing none. Susan can do a roll call vote, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Victoria,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay, that's good to know. And I don't have anything else on the agenda or any other topics to bring up. I will say, Linda, what's the filing time?
Oh, right.
Or do we know?
Today, yesterday.
Yesterday?
Started yesterday, and it goes through Friday, the 29th at 5 p.m. Should be
Okay.
open from 3 to 5
Okay.
on the
There's-
29th.
Yeah, they're open 3 to 5 specifically and only for election signups.
Okay.
No other transactions is my understanding.
Okay. Good to know. So I know there's 2 seats open, and well, that's all I'll say at this point in time. We'll see who gets their name in. Okay.
Good.
Anything else anybody needs to bring up or wants to bring up?
No business for tonight. Something that we did last year that I really liked and would like the board to continue doing going forward was early in the year, we set a calendar for what we wanted to accomplish. 2 months later, we tore the calendar up and threw the pieces in the air. But that was a pretty unusual set of circumstances. I know we still have some uncertainty with how this year is going to go and how meetings might go as we get further into vaccine schedules, emergency declaration, et cetera. But I do think it would be good for us to revisit at a future agenda. I don't know if you would want to wait till after board elections or that's something you'd want to do in February. But for now, I would at least say, think about what you want to accomplish and work on this year apart from cases. And we can have that conversation at a future meeting.
Hal, go ahead.
I'd like the board to be aware that Walter, our town administrator, is going to be talking with us tomorrow night about what he calls a task manager. Obviously, the focus will be on the town-related activities. But James, there's a certain amount of meshing that we need to do with the town activities. I'm thinking in particular about the CIP, but I'm sure there's others as relates to, like right now, the voting and things like that and the stuff that goes on the ballot. So, maybe when you get a chance, just talk with Walter and see what plans he has for integrating other areas into his plan or how he wants that to happen so that we can make sure that all these planning tools mesh.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. And in terms of specific to the CIP, that's one that even if I'm not a member of the board, I will still be available to assist on.
Good, good. And we've made it clear that we expect the town, especially the finance person, to help dig in on that with you. So again, that's another reason why we need to make sure we coordinate and people know what time is expected.
Right. Okay.
When is that meeting taking place?
What meeting are you talking about?
Oh, I thought you said you were having a meeting to discuss it.
No, at our next select board meeting, Linda.
Oh,
On the
I'm sorry.
agenda-
I thought you said tomorrow night or something.
Well, on Tuesday night at the
Oh,
select. board-
Tuesday night.
on the
Okay,
select
thank
board
you.
meeting, There's an agenda item called Task Manager. And Walter will talk about how he intends to manage the town's tasks, and I just want to make sure they're coordinated with other entities in the town.
No, I understood that. I thought you said tomorrow.
He might be willing to talk to you about it tomorrow if you pop in the office and ask.
No, I don't have time. Sorry, I'm on town report. No, I'm not. I was just clarifying when the discussion was taking place. That's all.
It's getting introduced on Tuesday, so I'm not sure
All right.
exactly how.
I'll wait. I'll wait till it's rolled out.
Yeah, let's see what he has to say first before we get too excited.
Okay. Anything else anybody needs to bring up? I would entertain a final motion then for tonight.
So moved.
To adjourn?
Second, third,
Okay. Gee. And I think we can do a voice vote on that instead of a roll call.
got a reaction. Yeah.
Anybody disagreeing?
Okay.
None. Okay, we're at 7:38. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Have
Bob.
a good evening.
Thank you.